Hello. Welcome back to 9 Little Aussies. My name is Chrissy and I am doing a little bit of preserving, just popping away some basil that I've had in my garden, and then I was just drying it you may have seen it in previous videos, just hanging around the house in different places. And I had some laid out on these tea towels on a shelf, but it's all ready to go away. So far we've done. Now there is no doubt, I guess there would be ways to do this that take up less space, but this is just simple and easy and I find it works. So for now, this is what I've been doing for quite a few years and it works. So this was drying, hanging on my window. Actually it wasn't on the window, but kind of beside it. And I just pull the leaves off. I'm putting the stalks in here and I will compost those. And I store them in these mason jars, or actually, like, this is an old honey jar that I had. And I just you might be able to see in there a tea bag. So I sort of put a tea bag somewhere in the bottle because it just helps absorb any moisture that may have gotten in there or may get in there during storage. So that is what I have been doing for the last little bit, but today, that's not what today's video is about. I'm almost finished that, so I'm going to finish off those few jars. And then I have something a little bit different, actually very different to my usual content here at 9 Little Aussies. Usually it's gardening or it's cooking or preserving or something of that effect. So what I'm going to share today is a little bit different. And not something I had even considered, but it was requested by a viewer. And I thought, well, I honestly, it feels a little bit awkward but I thought, well, there's no reason I can't share that. So this viewer emailed me and requested that I do a little show and tell of some of the artwork or photos and things that I have in my house. And it is something that I am very intentional with. I love to create spaces that are beautiful and meaningful. Now, what it means to me, it may not mean to anyone else, and that's fine. I think it's important for a home to be a place of beauty and a place of peace and joy. And that doesn't mean, like you will see, it does not mean for me spending anything really, as far as there's no fancy decorating here. This is just, most of them are things that have some kind of personal sentimental reason or meaning to me or to my family. But it gives us a sense of belonging and identity and joy, and that's important to me. So she said what sparked the question, I think it was this photo of my husband and I on the fridge. This is a wedding photo from 20 years ago. We look a little bit different now, but it is one of my favorite photos of us on our wedding day. And she mentioned it in the email, and I keep it on the fridge because it probably is my favorite photo from that whole day. But it also just, to me, encapsulates our relationship, where he just loves and dotes on me and takes care of me and is such a good man, and he always makes me smile. He's always making me laugh. Anyway, that's why that is on the fridge. And of course the obligatory artwork by my children. And usually, I don't know if anyone else's fridge is like this, but everything is usually crooked and out of place because it gets knocked and bumped. Zion did this little painting, which I just love. I actually think I'm probably going to frame that when I find a nice frame for it. He just did it off his own bat one day and brought it to me as a gift. Gracie loves fairies and princesses, and she colored that in. And there's a couple more like birthday notes and special things. This one is very special to me. That's my eldest when he was just a little guy. So he lives in Australia now, or at the moment. So that stays on my fridge. Okay, this one right here is actually a photo that we bought with us from Australia, and this is Happy Valley in Caloundra on the Sunshine Coast. It's a photo by a very well-known photographer who lives on the coast, and there are so many memories for me tied up in this photo. I have spent countless hours on this beach with my babies, skipping amongst the rocks, looking for crabs, playing in the waves and the puddles. It was a great beach to go to as a family because when the tide was out, there was lots of little puddles and pools of water to play in. So all of the different ages of the children, there'd be little shallow spots for the little ones and deeper ones for the big kids, rocks to climb on, and so much to explore and investigate. So in Australia, we lived very close to this beach for the first 15 years of our marriage, a long time. So I spent a lot of time here, a lot of special memories for all of us. So we bought this little piece of home with us. This one here, I did not bring from home, but last November, our 16-year-old son went back to Australia. He was asked to be in a wedding of some of our very close friends. So he went back for the wedding, and another friend, one of my best friends in Australia, sent this as a gift when he came back. She is a very talented artist, beautiful soul. I miss her so much, but she wrote this and painted it for me. These are galahs. For those of you who don't know, galahs are beautiful birds, very, very mischievous and loud and raucous and always getting into trouble. But I love that one. It's very special to me. Now, I have probably mentioned many times, I'm a book person. I love books, especially old books. But I have, so above the bookcase here, we have just a couple of family photos. This was an old one taken just before my husband was diagnosed with cancer. And that's just another one we had taken more recently that doesn't have everyone in it. But this is what I was mainly going to show you. This, again, is a photo. I don't know how clearly you'll be able to see it, but it is a photo of an Australian scene, pasture land, beautiful grazing country down in New South Wales. And it has the scripture on it, "Be still and know that I am God." And it's called Morning Light in Dunkfield. Again, a picture from home. I had this one for many years, actually, before we even thought about leaving the country. Yeah, so I've had that one for many years, and again, a scripture that means a lot to me out of the Bible as a believer, and it is lovely to have some pictures from home. Okay, this corner here we have a poem that the If poem by Rudyard Kipling, one of my favorite poems, and it actually hung in my family home when I was growing up. It was Mum and Dad's. It's definitely old and actually a bit dusty, but it's kind of got that 70s feel to it in the fontage. But it is it's just a piece of home, to me, piece of my childhood. And I love Rudyard Kipling and his work, but especially that poem. And just the fact I know I'm a sentimental old chook, and I can't help it. That's just the way I am. But I love having these little reminders and pieces of my past and pieces of home around our place. And all of my older children have committed that poem to memory at some point. Whether they can still remember it, I don't know. One of them I know can, but the oldest three at least have memorized it at some point or another. A lot of good advice in there. Okay, I'm in the lounge room now, and this one is a beautiful painting. It's an original, and it was a wedding present to my husband and I from one of his friends from college. He did college over here in America, and one of his dear friends who came to Australia after we got married, and I met her and she became a good friend of mine, sent it to us as a wedding present. And then one of our other friends had it framed. But it's beautiful. It's very, to me, when we got it as a gift, I loved it straight away. But it's very, very American as far as the look of it. Like, we don't have really red barns in Australia. We have lots of sheds, but they're not usually red. And all the beautiful flowers and the oak trees, like, it's very, to me, iconic of here. When we were in Australia, it would hang on our wall, and it was like, well, this is a piece of my husband's heritage. This is a piece of his past. And now we're living here. So isn't it funny? It's sort of full circle. The other thing that has made this very special is that this friend passed away tragically, way earlier than she should have. So yeah, it is a dear memento of her life. Okay, the last couple of things I thought I would show you are these little birdies. Now, last year, let me see, it was when we hadn't been here terribly long and we had just started getting things for the house. And one of my sons bought me this. He knows I love birds. I just love, I love birds in the wild. I love knowing how to identify them and hearing their song. But I also love paintings of birds, and I've got a couple of little figurines. Actually, I'll show you them in a minute, that I bought from home. And he knows that, and he bought that for me for, I think it was for Mother's Day last year. And then I found this matching one. I think he got it at Hobby Lobby, because I found this one at Hobby Lobby that matches. And it was 50% off. Hobby Lobby has such great sales. It's like my favorite place. But anyway, so I got those to match. Okay, I know I said last thing, but this is last thing. These little birds. Okay, so these two little guys, aren't they just adorable? They were a gift from my husband a few years ago now. They've traveled around with us, around Queensland when we're in the caravan. And so I had to bring them with me. So these chookies, these were a gift from my little guys as well at Christmas. And I had to bring this years ago. I've had this for a long time. It was a Mother's Day gift from one of my older boys when they were little. And of course, we don't have this spelling over here. I'm like, oh, that has to come. And I think I've mentioned before my school bell, which is not really art, but it is. This is a very, very old school bell from it's more than 100 years old, from a schoolhouse in the little town where I grew up and where our family farm was. So that has come with us as well on this long journey. It is time for a cup of tea, just to sit for a small moment and enjoy the rain. It's a bit cooler, which is just so lovely. I'm definitely ready. I'm ready for the cool to set in. forgot to bring the tea strainer out. But I grew up in a house where we sometimes used a tea strainer and sometimes didn't. So I'm kind of used to having a few stray tea leaves in the bottom of my cup. Oh, that smells good. So I was thinking, so I shared a few of my little, I don't know, pictures, photos, artworks, things that have meaning to me, most of which I brought with me from Australia. Some of them I couldn't, they were just too big, so that's okay. But that wasn't very long, and it didn't take me very long to show you all. And I thought, well, something else that has been rolling around my head is I've been thinking a lot. You know, I'm in my mid-40s now, and thinking a lot about influences in my life. Maybe, I don't know why. I mean, I've always been prone to being slightly philosophical, but maybe as I have young men now launching into the world, my eldest is 20, and we talk to him regularly. He calls nearly just about every week, and he's thriving. He's doing so well. But as he launches into life and young adulthood, it just makes you reflect back on my young adulthood in my life and choices I've made, and the things that have formed me and shaped me. As I think about my children and what has shaped them and decisions they're making. So as I have been, you know, mulling over these things, there are definitely some standouts, I suppose. And I have heard say a very long time ago the saying that who you will become in 5 years from now is the sum of the top, you know, handful, maybe say 5 books that you read. At the time it was tapes you listened to and people that you spend time with, because we rub off on each other and we learn and we grow through the books we read. Of course, today it's not so much tapes and cassettes as it is podcasts or maybe YouTube channels. I don't know. It's changed, but it's still the same principle. We become like those people we hang out with, and we can learn and grow through the books we read if we choose to. Such steady rain. It's just glorious. It's only been a couple of weeks since we've had rain, but even in that couple of weeks, like maybe 3 weeks since rain, I guess, which, you know, as an Aussie is not very long to go without rain, but the plants around here were definitely feeling it, I think. Anyway, so as I ponder all these things, there's definitely some standouts that, number one, some people, absolutely some people who've had a big impact on me and who I am. Of course, my parents, always, well, I guess maybe not always, but they had a big impact on me, for sure. Books, there's definitely, and the more I thought about it, it's funny because right now my son is reading The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom, which was a book I decided many years ago I want all my children to read before they leave home. And I think the reason I made that decision is it had a huge, tremendous impact on me, life-changing impact on me. And as I look back over my life, I can see the outworking of that, which is really interesting because you don't think of that at the time. So if you haven't read it, The Hiding Place was a book written by Corrie ten Boom about her experience as a young woman during the war, and her family, who were not Jewish, but they helped rescue Jews, and they hid Jewish people and Jewish families inside the walls of their homes. So there was like these areas where you could get in between the walls, and they hid people there to save them from the horrible things that were being done. But ultimately they then themselves got arrested and taken to these concentration camps. And it is her story of living through incredible trauma, but making very deliberate decisions to live with honor, integrity, and choosing love and forgiveness in the midst of it, even as she watched her family die, be tortured, just horrendous things that you can only imagine. Like, I can't even imagine that she witnessed, and walked through with such grace and humility and honor. That book just changed me. It wrecked me. It devastated me, and it changed me. Very young woman when I read it. I don't know exactly, but I was still a teenager, and I can look through the sequence of my life and see where I have made decisions and deliberate choices that were not easy because of my desire to do what she did, to walk with honor and grace and obedience to the Lord, I guess, and biblical principles, and living like Jesus did, even when it's really hard. Okay, so that's book number 1. Book number 2 that had, again, a very formative, life-changing impact on me was a book by Elizabeth Elliot called Through Gates of Splendor. And I actually have read a lot of her books, other books she has written. Oh, I can't even remember all the titles now. It might have been called The Path Through Suffering. Anyway, she's written a lot of books, and I've read a few of them. And her writings in general definitely had a huge impact on me, mainly in just how to deal with life when it takes unexpected twists and turns, and dealing with hard things and choosing how to walk that path. So that book really, that author, she really had a big impact on me. And another one, I guess more so in the last decade. So those first 2 I read very early on and had a very formative effect on me as a person, and especially as a woman and as a mother. The next one, well, actually I'll back up, because the other book was one I read as a teenager. It's a novel, or a series of novels, and 2 authors, I guess, that have had a huge impact on me, and they're very well known. I read Tolkien when I was 15 and completely disappeared into the world of Tolkien for a long time and just loved it, like completely absorbed in it. But there is just so much richness in his writing, and I read it again a couple of years ago, and I was just curious, am I still going to be impacted to the same degree? Am I going to have the same love and adoration for this work as I did as a 15-year-old? And yes, absolutely. In fact, maybe even more so, when you've got a couple of decades under your belt and you've seen a lot of things. And yeah, so many gems and so much richness to absorb out of those books. Again, it was more so the we don't get to choose necessarily everything that we live through. We don't always get to choose that, but we do get to choose how we live through it and the path we take. So love The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. As a 15-year-old, I then delved off into the Silmarillion and that whole world, which I got a little bit overwhelmed in there. I was like, okay, all this Elvish, I can't get my head around this, but still, to this day, love Tolkien. And C.S. Lewis also, another one. The Chronicles of Narnia are just epic, aren't they? Like, they are just so good. And I think the one, like, I love all of them. But the one that got me the most was the very last book in the series, in the Chronicles. It was called The Last Battle. And I actually didn't read it when I was younger. I read it as an adult, as a mum, reading it aloud to my children. So I'd read all the others and was familiar with the story, but I had never, got around to reading The Last Battle. And it was just, so good. So good. So there was those. And then the last one is Sally Clarkson. Now, Sally is a mum of 4. She has written a ton of books, a ton of them. The ones that have probably had the greatest impact on me are, what are the titles? Life-Giving Table, A Life-Giving Home. She's also written Awakening Wonder, which was excellent. I use her homeschooling book a lot, which I can't remember the title of right now, but it's anyway, I shall find it and write it in. But her writings, I listen to her podcast. I find her so encouraging as a mother, especially as a mother teaching my children. So she has somewhat challenged and encouraged me both at the same time, I think, in my parenting, in the way I homeschool and teach my children, in the way I look at life. It's huge, just in a really good way, So if you haven't heard of her or read any of her work, or highly recommend. And it is true, and I kind of feel like it goes without saying, but I guess it doesn't go without saying, I should say, the book that has had the most impact on me is the Bible. I am a believer. It is a huge part of my life and impacts on every decision I make and everything I do, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And that's my choice and my experience, and that's definitely the biggest impact has been the Bible. But these other books have definitely also had a huge impact on me and formed me in ways that I didn't realize they were going to when I first read them. So I'd be curious to know what books have impacted you and what books you love and that you would always want to have on your shelf. We live in an age where we are bombarded with information, and we all know this. I mean, we all get overwhelmed by it, I think. I do. Social media, podcasts, the news, the TV, movies, it's your inbox, your email. It's just overwhelming at times. But when I look back over the many years, I can definitely see that these books that I have slowly read and absorbed and mulled and chewed over have formed me and have impacted me, and I'm sure that there are other people where that is the case as well. I'm sure it's the same for others. So I would love to hear what books you love and have changed you as you read them. So I know that has been very different to usual. No cooking today and no gardening. But let me know what you think. Did you enjoy this content? Is it something you're interested in? Or should I just get back in the garden? Let me know what you think in the comments. And I do hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. Sunshine and raindrops, friends. We'll see you soon.